Welcome, everyone, to another Photographer's Favorites episode. This is the show where I pick 5 of my favorite photos from other photographers. My guest today, Matthew, is going to pick 5 of his favorite photos from other photographers, and we're going to tell you everything we love about it. So today I have Matt Malwitz with me. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, sure thing, man. I appreciate you taking the time to set aside and join me on the show. Matt, how long have you been doing wildlife photography?
I'd say about 3, 4 years now, seriously.
Nice.
Started when I was in high school. I kind of did it after school here and there, picked up my dad's old camera, and then it's
Okay.
just progressed to pretty much everything I do when I'm not at work.
Yeah, nice. Dude, for the people that get hooked on it, that's what happens. I was out with a
Yeah.
client this morning and she was saying the same thing. She was just like, this is all I do all the time now. I'm like addicted to it, And I think for the people that get into it, that's totally what happens.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's addicting, but it's very peaceful, very, very
Yeah.
calming.
Yep. Yeah. That's really interesting. You started at such a young age. I'm finding that more and more now, which I think is awesome. I'm hearing a lot more younger people getting into it from an early age, and it doesn't seem like on the outside to me anyway. It doesn't seem like it's a young person's game. It seems like something you would do when you're old and birding and that kind of thing, right? So
Yeah.
what got you into it? Were you always into outdoors and wildlife and nature?
I mean, I've always loved animals. It's
Okay,
actually funny. When I was a kid, I loved dinosaurs, and it's funny.
nice.
It came full circle to dinosaurs again.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Good point.
um, what actually got me started with it was anxiety. It
Okay,
was a stress reliever. It was something,
yeah,
I had a lot of anxiety in school, and it was just something that I could get outside and kind of release from that. A nice
nice,
way
man.
to just enjoy life again, not be
Yeah.
stressed all the time. And it still does the trick.
Yeah, yeah, it's great, especially like listen, I'm sure we've all had the experience, right? When you get out there and you can't find anything and things aren't working and that can get frustrating, but if you can take a step back, take a breath and notice like, look where I am right now. It's just even with no wildlife here, it's an amazing place to be, nice fresh air, all that stuff. It's still a net positive in that regard, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Nice. Excellent. All right. Well, dude, happy to have you here. If you're not following Matt's Instagram already, I got it up on the screen right here. Mathew Malwitz. Check that out and make sure you give him a follow. And you ready to jump right in?
Absolutely. Let's do
All
it.
right, cool. We'll kick it off with a photo you chose here from Johnny Gidney. Do you know Johnny?
I do.
Okay.
Met him a couple of years ago shooting
Nice.
owls, and I work in a camera store, and he's a good customer there, so I see him
Oh,
all the
nice.
time.
Excellent. Yeah. I've had the privilege of going out and doing some photography with him one time. Really cool kid. So anyway, back to the photo. Uh, Incredible shot. Just the colors jump out at me, like jump right off the page instantly. That's the first thing I notice is the insane colors of this photo. And then obviously really cool salamander, I'm guessing. Yep, redback salamander, he said. I'm not really good at identifying any kind of reptile, so I'm lucky that I even guessed it was a salamander. um, the way the colors in some areas match the color of the salamander, and here's the second thing that I love, right? So the first thing I notice is the colors. The second thing I absolutely love is all of the lines and textures and everything about this leaf to me seem kind of almost I'm not saying this in a bad way, they're harsh, right? They're crunchy and kind of hard edges and really strong texture. And then you have this beautiful smooth curve of the salamander right in there. And it's such a great contrast from that texture of the leaf that I think that kind of built-in complete opposite textures there of the smooth curves versus the hard kind of crunchy texture really makes it an outstanding photo to me. Great light on top of it as well. I don't know if this was naturally lit or artificially lit. I'm not sure if he says in any of the description there. I mean, I don't want to sit here and read the whole thing, but it doesn't appear as though he mentions it. But in any case, the light's great. Love the just like it's a big soft light source coming in from a little bit on the left-hand side based on the way it's reflecting on the tail there and the body. And yeah, man, just a gorgeous shot.
Absolutely. I agree with everything you said. I also love the posture of it, just that slight like curve to it, that S curve
Yeah.
to it.
Yep.
Really draws your eye. I at least when I look at it, I start at the tail, work your way down to the head, and
Yeah.
again, the textures, everything like you said, it's just really incredible.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you brought up. It kind of, I can see it being viewed that way. I'm not really sure which area I focused on at first. I'm trying to remember when I first just saw it a second ago, like what caught me first. Cause I like that you mentioned you went from the tail down. That's kind of, a little bit different. Normally you would kind of go to the subject's head, right? But I think it does
It's
kind of
just
work that way. Yeah.
it's just a leading line, and it brings you down to
Yeah.
that. What I think is the bottom has the richer color. The top, this
Yeah.
color and texture is beautiful throughout, but the bottom
Yeah.
has that right nice reds in there, and
Yep.
it kind of just leads right into it.
It really does. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's a well done shot. It really is. So nice choice. Good way to kick off the show. All right. Here's the first one I chose. Let's see what you think.
Immediately, well, first off, that's a beautiful stag there, and nice set of antlers, and two, the color palette, just the cool tones going up into the warm tones. It's a very nice balance. It doesn't, it's not too harsh. You get a sense of, it makes a lot of winter shots really kind of give you that sense of coldness. They give you that
Yeah.
sense of, it's really, and this does that, but it also
Yeah.
has a sense of warmth to it, which is hard to do. It's hard to
Yeah.
get both.
Yep. Yeah. I fully agree with you, man. Yeah. The frost in that foreground, right, just really brings out that cold. It lets you know how cold it is right there, that there's just everything's covered in that frost. And completely agree with what you said. The cool warm balance there. I love color contrast in photos. That's something I really start to pay attention. It's fun. I don't try to actively shoot it so much, but when I see it in a photo I've captured, I will try to enhance it.
Oh yeah.
And that the blue yellow, cool warm balance is one that just always works so well together. And he photographed it so perfectly here. Getting the subject in the shade, but then the background getting nailed with that sun. You get the anticipation of that warm sun eventually going to hit the subject, eventually going to hit you, and maybe kind of warm things up a little bit. And the symmetry on this is really important, I think, as well. Not only with the antlers, but the eyes. Like we're looking right. I mean, pretty much right down the middle of this stag's head, and then the ears are almost perfectly kind of positioned in under the antlers there. I mean, there's a little bit of a difference in space there, but it's minute. So having that symmetry, I think, is just really engaging, and it works really well with the square crop that he stuck with here. So yeah, all that stuff just really comes together for a powerful image.
Oh yeah. No, it's the symmetry, like you said. Again, I didn't at first glance. I'm looking at the color. I didn't even notice
Yeah.
how well that is, but
Yeah.
it's just, and also I'm a sucker for the rule of thirds and basics, so I
Yep.
love the nice proportion to it.
Yeah, right. Third line down here, another third line up here with the antlers, or even just kind of the color change, right? The middle's kind of dark, then you got the golden, so it's just like broken down into a layer sandwich there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, nice. Good pointing. Excellent. All right, let's move on to the next photo, one that you chose from Kyle. Excellent. Yeah, right off the bat, incredible action and incredible interaction as well. It's really neat to see. It's not just a bird portrait. This is total behavior. It just looks like they're at each other, and songbirds and all these little birds like this do this all the time. If you spend enough time with them, especially birds that flock a little bit more than others, is whenever they get together. I feel like something like this happened in an instant. Like to be able to capture this, the fact that he was, taking the photo when this happened is not easy to do because, I mean, maybe it was an extended session, but in my experience, most time when I see songbirds kind of have an interaction like this, by the time I realize it's happening, it's over. So there's no chance for me to take a photo of it. So the fact that Kyle got that is just incredible. Both of them at the top of the branches there is incredible. And it's also amazing, like looking at this, I feel like the thinness and daintiness of this perch shouldn't support one of these birds, let alone two of them there, and it appears obviously they're kind of flying right now, but it appears as though at one point they were both kind of perched on that, or maybe one's coming in chasing the other one off. I don't know, but and the color as well, same thing, right? We got just a nice even, almost even cooler tones on the foreground, and then the warmer tone, just like winter browns in the background, look really good. No distractions in the background, just super clean shot.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. It's just such a clean image. It's just truly a just luck and chance. What are the odds?
Yep.
But it's a gorgeous, and for something that happened so quick, it's a gorgeous composition. And we got both side by side. It's
Yeah,
how many photographs of something like this where one's in the back, one's blocking the other
totally.
one, to get them both in the same plane of focus side by side like that with the wing spread is just incredible.
Dude, that's such a great point, Matt. That kind of stuff happens all the time. How many times have you said to yourself, if only they were like this angle, if only it had shifted this way? Because it's like there's so many of those almost shots. Yeah, so
I'd have a
that's a
lot
great
better.
point.
I'd have a lot more better photos if the birds cooperated
If
like
they were
this.
always perfectly parallel, yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, that's so fun. This morning I was out and we end up on this flock of tundra swans, and a bunch of them were actually doing courtship behavior, which was really neat. I've never seen before. And then I had no idea they did this, but kind of like some of the grebe species, they actually, two of them got up side by side, paired, and started running on the water, like wings out, like right next to each other. I'm like, this is amazing, and I'm shooting because like I'm zeroed in on that action.
Oh
Meanwhile,
yeah.
they're going through like dozens of other birds, so there's other birds in the foreground, background. Like I don't think I'll be amazed if any of the shots turn out. Still really cool to see. But
Oh yeah.
that's the kind of stuff that happens all the time. So yeah, the fact that Kyle got this, and I was reading his caption while you were just talking a minute there, and he did even mention like it only lasted a second. So, and a second is probably an exaggeration half the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Well, all I can say is well done, Kyle.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Which is always the case with him. He's always sharing some really good stuff. All right, here's another one for you.
Oh boy. Okay, so
Yeah,
two things. One is it's a gorgeous bird.
yeah,
The lighting is well, three things. The lighting is gorgeous and the angle is gorgeous. I like I said, I work in a camera store. I have a lot of people asking questions all the time, and that's my first recommendation: get down at eye level.
yeah.
You want to
Those.
shoot at eye level, and the way the reflection on the water, all the little the little glimmers around it,
Yep,
the backlighting. It looks like an immature bird.
yep. I would
Um,
agree.
it just immature birds get a lot of, depending on the bird, a lot of them get a lot of bad rap for not being as pretty as the adults, but a lot of species, they are just as gorgeous, a lot of beautiful markings on them. But
Yeah,
I
some of
love
them are almost
the,
even more interesting.
yeah, but I love the streaking on the head of this
Yeah,
guy. It's
totally.
a gorgeous bird and gorgeous light. I love the angle. I love the how much it pops. I love the contrast between it and the background.
Yep.
And it's a great shot.
Yeah.
I don't have much more to say. I mean,
Yeah. No,
it's
perfect.
just
Yeah,
I
I
love
agree.
all of that about it.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add either. I think you nailed it. The fact of that getting that low perspective is so key. And then another thing I do love, excuse me, that happens when you get that really, really low perspective. And this only happens in my experience when you're, an inch or two off the surface of the water, is you get these smeared reflections.
Yeah,
And it's interesting to me. It's not like the clear mirror reflection that you'd honestly, he probably would have gotten. It looks really calm. If the photographer was up, another foot, like he probably would have maybe seen a nice clear mirror reflection of that. But there's something to me about that smeared reflection that just happens when you're super, super low. That's also really interesting, because I guess part of it is the reflection becomes secondary at that
hmm,
point. So if you have a mirror reflection, the reflection is almost just as important as the subject at that point. But when you it gets smeared like this, it's just a secondary element. Your eye goes right to the bird. It really draws you in. And like you said, being on that eye level is like that. And then just my favorite lighting ever. So
yeah.
I am a fan of this light. If anybody hasn't become aware of that yet.
I do have to say, looking at the description, the gear, I think this image here proves the point. A lot of people think with the
Yep.
to get that nice blurred foreground and background, you need a big f4, f2.8
Oh yeah.
lens, and they've got 6.3 on a super zoom here.
Yep.
They're all very capable lenses. Granted, an
Yep.
f4 makes your job a whole lot easier, but it's possible. It's possible with slower lenses.
Yeah. Another great point. And for a shot like this, it's more about that perspective. You know,
Exactly.
if you're 2-3 feet up, well, then all of a sudden the background is only a foot or so behind the subject, or maybe 2 feet behind it. Where as this photographer is laying down so low, this background behind the head of the bird anyway looks like it's a good, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 feet back there. It's a good distance. So even at 6'3", it just melts away. And the foreground, the fact that he composed the bird a little bit higher in the frame and kept some of that foreground is a great move as well. You know, instead of kind of putting more space up top, which is nice, clean, dark space, but nowhere near as interesting as this.
And with if it were down lower, you know, the traditional, again, going back to the rule of thirds, that, you know, there's rules are meant to be broken, and this is one of those situations where having the water line almost right down the middle gives you, like you said before, the reflection. And no, I agree.
Excellent. All right, let's keep it moving. Oh, nice. Love this one. I remember when he shared this one. This one is all about the pose. I mean, listen, beautiful bird, beautiful light. Love these oven birds. They're such characters. And then love the background, the texture back there. This would be really good and just nice and clean without this little splash of a little bit more in focus, you know, almost even looks like a hemlock back there, but some kind of pine coming in the background. I think it would still totally work. Like if we imagine the whole background being this, obviously just nice and clean, but I love the fact that there's just an added element of texture, gives some more depth to it. And it frames the bird in perfectly up here, just like right over top of its head, but there's plenty of space. It's not encroaching. So I love that additional splash of kind of textured background there. And then, yeah, just the pose, like the big old, you know, pink foot up like that is just absolutely outstanding. And, you know, it's funny when you see these birds in the forest at first, especially from a distance, or if they're in the ground, which is where they spend most of their time, they're so, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of blah looking, like they're just unimpressive at first, you know, but then when you get them either more exposed or like this up, like the markings on them are just incredible. And then especially if you get one with its crown raised with the black and orange lines up there, the oven birds are a really beautiful warbler, and a big warbler too, which is really neat. So yeah, love everything about this.
Yeah, I agree. Everything you said, I agree with. I love warblers, so I'm a little bit impartial here. That I just love.
Nice.
You know, most warbler images I'm gonna like, but this
Gotcha.
one, the pose was really what caught me. The small in frame is something that I kind of I kind of like. I like when something has space that's in its
Mm-hmm.
environment, and yeah, I think if this were a closer image, it would still work because the pose
Yeah.
is really what draws you in. It would work in any. Again, I don't want to repeat you here, but I, you know, don't have much more to add. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
No,
a
I
great
agree.
shot.
Right. If we zoom in on this and it was like, you know, all close like that, yeah, still totally works. But I agree with you. It didn't need to. Like all of that space is just as well. And then also, I mean, keep in mind, right? We're like, I don't know what computer Gray is using, but if he's viewing it on a bigger screen like that, like it's just more impressive. We're viewing this tiny on Instagram. These are smaller photos,
Yeah,
so you know the detail that you still can see, even when the birds are smaller in the frame, is obviously reduced when we're sharing on these tiny screens or viewing it on our phone and stuff like that. But the photo, I think, still overall just works better. Not better, in this case, better with more space
yeah,
because, you know, nice close ups can be great as well.
they
Um,
can be. Yeah, the
yeah.
vertical orientation is also something that is highly underutilized, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yep. Yeah, and it would be interesting to know if he shot it that way or cropped it that way after the fact, because I can say for a fact, you know, in my warbler photography, it's very rare that I rotate my camera vertically because it's very rare I have enough time to think to
Yeah,
do
no,
that.
they're too fast.
Yeah, so if I'm ever going to pull a vertical composition, it's usually going to be, you know, a crop and post.
Mhm.
Um, but not to say that I've never done it. There's one time I can remember a common yellowthroat pops out on this perch. He lands there, and I see immediately behind him, there's like this, there was a fresh, like spring little growth of a vine, like curving up behind him, and it was kind of going over top of him. Well, in the horizontal frame, it curved up and then was just cut, but I was far enough away that I saw if I rotated vertical. So I think I took like 1 or 2 frames. It stayed there and was singing. And then I
Ooh,
immediately rotated vertical, composed it in the bottom of the frame, and was able to get the whole completion of this vine like hanging over top of it. And so it worked. But that was one of the very few times I can ever remember having the time and the wherewithal to think like, oh, let's rotate vertical and get that shot.
yeah, like you said, it's too quick to they move
Yeah.
too quick for you to really ever make that choice. And that's awesome though with the yellowthroat.
Yeah, they really do. Have you spent much time photographing warblers? Have you
Um,
done it for many years or just last
just
year?
the
Or?
past two. So
Okay.
well, this year I've been scouting locations all around South Jersey. I have family down there I visit, so I've been
Oh,
heading to local
nice.
parks into the woods. But
Yeah.
last year was the first year I really went out on my own. 2019, um, a birder, much more knowledgeable than me, kind of let me join him on a trip up into northwestern New Jersey for a
Ah,
trip through like High Point State Park, and I was hooked immediately. Saw
yeah.
cerulean, chestnut sided, and last year 2020 I went out on my own.
Nice.
Managed to get black-throated green for the first time,
Congrats.
hooded for the first time. Looked for Black Burnian, and that bird is my nemesis now because I saw like three, but none of them would cooperate. So I'll find them one day.
Yeah, join me next year. I'll get you on them. Yeah, I must have found. I lost track of how many I found this past year.
Oh
Yeah, they were a
boy,
great bird though. Yeah.
I might
All
take you
right.
up on that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. All right, let's keep it going. There's one for
Ooh,
you. Yeah,
oh my goodness.
yeah.
Gorgeous colors, gorgeous pose. Is that a godwit?
It is. Yeah,
Black-tailed godwit. There we go. Look at
black-tailed.
that.
Yeah,
Um, love the tones, love the pose of the bird, love the subtle, the parts of the background you can see the reeds around it.
yeah.
It's I'm at a loss of words here. It's just a very gorgeous composition. I love backlit. I love silhouettes. I think it was done very nicely.
hmm
I got to I love the little bit of light showing through its nostril though. That's
Isn't that
something
great when
that
that happens?
gorgeous. It just kind of
Yeah.
again it gives you a little more sense of where things are. And I think without it, it almost. I mean, I've tried silhouettes to no avail because I think
Okay.
without that, it almost looks fake. It almost looks like it's not true.
Yeah.
The bird doesn't look like a bird, but with that, it really kind of it
Yeah.
really lets you know what you're looking at.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a incredibly composed image. The color, that's just such a rich, you know, orange that very strong,
Yeah.
very either very early or very late.
Sure. Exactly. Yep. Yeah. Definitely. This was like right at sunrise or sunset. No doubt. No doubt. Yeah. I I really love like the first thing that jumps out at me is the color, and honestly, the next thing that hits me is the mood of this photo.
Yeah,
That's what really, this places you in that marsh in the early morning or late evening. I'm going to go with morning. We'll just call it morning. If it was evening, that's fine. But, to me, this evokes just being out in the marsh early morning. The sun is probably just come up over the horizon. It looks like there's probably some fog hanging, some kind of low hanging mist or something with just the vibe of this photo. And then just kind of that almost peering into the sun. Some of these photos, some of these backlit photos like this, they almost make me just automatically like squint when I'm looking at it with the anticipation that I'm looking into the sun. Meanwhile, obviously there is no bright sun. I'm just looking at a photo on the screen. But I love when photos do that, when they almost elicit a physical response
yeah,
because of that mood that's there. And the placement of the background, I usually don't like when a background goes right through the middle of the bird like that. But in this circumstance, and it can work at times, when it's so out of focus that it's so soft, it's not like a hard line back there of a horizon. It's just this super soft gradient that again just places you in the shot a little bit more as the viewer. It makes me feel like I'm down in that marsh. And then one of the things you touched on, Matt, is the last thing that really stands out to me, which is just the subtle, soft textures of the other little bits of grasses that kind of give it more of a sense of place. Because
yeah,
if we look at the left half here, right, if the whole right side was just like this smooth out of focus, it's kind of like, all right, is it in like a marshy area? Just, is it standing up on a dirt road? Like it could be anywhere, like we don't know. But as soon as you add this into it there, it's, marsh or grassland, and knowing the species, I'm going to go with a marsh,
yeah.
most often that's where you're going to find these godwit, these shorebirds. And so it places it. It's habitat, it's subtle habitat, but it's just enough to give you that information as the viewer to kind of put you in the scene. So all of that comes together. Just a beautifully well done silhouette. All right, let's keep it going. Good old Theo. You can never go wrong picking an image from Theo. Yeah, again, back to behavior, incredible interaction. This image has characteristics of a beautiful portrait as well as the behavior. Ignore this bird for a second in the nest cavity there. Just a beautiful portrait of this bird. Incredible use of foreground here. Theo is a master at doing that. He is always so great at incorporating some really good foreground, so it's not just a plain flat photo with that lacks depth, which I don't say that in a negative way that's a horrible thing. But to me, the use of foreground in this circumstance just adds depth and again places you. To me, a lot of this use of foreground makes you feel like you're just, as the viewer, just kind of peering into this bird's life versus just having an open, clean view of a bird. I don't know why it doesn't make me feel like I'm kind of like, peeking out of that bush over the top of it. And like, that's what it makes me feel like right now. It feels like I'm just peeking over these leaves and getting to witness the lives of these birds. So just beautiful all around, great angled line there. Outstanding, just soft, smooth, nice light. Great birds too. These with the acorn peckers. Yeah. Love these guys. Never seen one, but just such a cool looking bird with that white eye. Come on. And then, we add on top of that, all those great things, the interaction of the other one, coming out of the cavity like that. And it's just Theo all over, just an outstanding photo. Very well done.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an incredible behavior shot. It's an incredible portrait. Theo has a way, with all of his images of taking what many would look at to be like a busy image and just melting away all the surroundings. Yeah. It's just an incredible skill of his. I love the texture of the bark too. That helps greatly with woodpecker shots in general.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you how many shots of woodpeckers I have that are just too bland. If
Gotcha.
You get a bird on a very plain looking perch, it never really works. Where the angle of it, it's very, very painterly.
Yeah. And, a good point about that bark too and the texture there, like part of it especially for this bird, you kind of need it out in its own space. Cause if it's just pressed up against that, it can kind of get lost in that texture a lot.
Yeah.
And that's something that happens all the time with woodpecker photos or, nuthatches, creepers, any of those things that cling to bark like that. I'm always waiting. I'm like, come on, go around the side, give me the profile.
Absolutely. They're tricky sometimes. They are really tricky.
Yep.
That's my issue with brown creepers. They never are on the side of the tree where I want them to be.
Totally.
But I also would like to talk about dead space or empty space. It's referred to as dead space, like behind the woodpecker, because it doesn't really, it works in this image. Yep. It's not wasted space. And I think a lot of people try to get close-ups of the birds because they're afraid of having that open space.
Mm-hmm.
And if done well, in this case, done excellently, it just is part of the image. It just melts away. It doesn't distract. It really complements the subjects. And I like the subtle, if it were entirely that darker green that we see at the top, I think it would have been a very different image. I think it would have maybe blended too well into the bird's back, but because you have that brighter color, it really makes it stand out.
Totally agree. Yep. Yeah. And how funny that it like that splash of lighter green just happens right where the bird is, probably no coincidence. It's probably Theo just kind of working the angles, getting it just right, paying attention to that background. And, I'll try to take a tiny bit of credit from him because I did teach him a little bit right when he was first kind of getting really into photography. Okay. And then he immediately just surpassed me, with his creativity. Dude, shooting with him is just such an absolute blast too. I love shooting with him anytime he comes around the area because he's a photographer that, like, I feel like in general, I'm really good at pushing myself and, really making sure I go all out. And then I start shooting with Theo and I'm like, dude, I can't even keep up. I cannot even keep up because he's just like, go, go, go. He's on the move. And he's like thinking about everything, really working the angles. And it's impressive to see him, work a scene because he's not just like, oh, there's a bird and point the camera and shoot. Like maybe, just to get the first initial shot when it appears. That's what he does.
Yeah.
But then immediately his mind just kind of goes into overdrive of just, all right, how do I make this better? And you watch him moving up, down, left, right, every angle. And then usually I just kind of stand back and watch because I'm like, I can't keep up, dude. So yeah, he's a blast to shoot with. All right, there you go. Something a little different.
Ooh, something a little different. I love the scene. Nice snowy scene. The moose. I have yet to to see a moose, to take any photographs of a moose before. I know they're up in Maine a lot, but this is just gorgeous. The snowy scene. Again, I like, just like that deer, elk. I'm not sure what it was in the first image.
Oh yeah,
that same
stag. Yeah.
that stag. That same sense of coldness, but it really puts you in the environment to see it. The placement of it in the frame is, again, just, it really draws your eye to it. But again, I love I also love the taller trees sticking up around it. Again, just giving a nice sense of, if they weren't there, would it work? Yes. But the fact that they're there just enhances it that much more. It just kind of, it kind of blends the sky and ground together a little bit more for me.
Sure.
And it's a situation where I love how much of the area is in focus, because you can really, again, get a sense for the environment, really get a sense for the space that moose is in. I also, just trying to see.
Yeah.
Just so much to look at.
Yeah.
But it's very well composed. And I also love white skies when done well.
Yeah.
I don't do them that well, but the high key skies are really gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the composition. I love moose. And it looks like, is there snow on his antlers?
I'm not sure, actually.
It almost looks like there might be
yeah, right in there. Yep, totally.
I know, yeah.
Yep.
He's been there for a little while. That's gorgeous.
Yeah, definitely. So there's something, it's funny, when I first picked this photo, I didn't dive into it, and I try not to, right? I try to pick photos that I'm just like, okay, this is impactful, like there's more to talk about. I try not to kind of dive into it too much because I want to do that on the show. Yeah. So, number one, take a look at the hashtag shot on iPhone. So this is a phone.
Oh, photo. Wow. I didn't even see that. Jeez.
So that's pretty cool. And then I'll have to find out from the photographer, because what's throwing me off as far as just me understanding the photo. Listen, I agree with everything you said. Composed perfectly. I love the scene. The wintry scene is just great. The moose kind of just nestled in the snow like that. But what I can't figure out is either what caused it when it was shot, or if it was done in post, how the left side of some of these trees are soft and kind of blurry, but then all of these trees are in focus and all the way back. So I'm wondering, I wonder if there was like maybe some moisture or something on the lens, like on the top left, that just kind of blurred this area out, or if it was maybe something that was done in post. I don't know. But like, as you were talking, I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh wow, that's so interesting that like, because I would expect this side to be in focus as well. It looks like it's on the same plane as that, so I don't know if it was like, or maybe like something that was done in like on a phone filter or something. I don't know. But in any case, it's wild. But yeah, just the scene overall is like, come on, like, does it get any more winter than that? Just these spruce or fir trees or whatever they are, just completely covered in the snow like that. And then the moose just kind of nestled down in there. It's a pretty cool scene overall. So yeah, it made me pause. Yeah.
Oh, I can see why. But yeah, I didn't notice that at first with the trees, the background there.
Yeah, interesting, right? I'll have to ask him. Yeah. What were you gonna say?
I was just looking at it closer. I mean, I think, like you said, just have to ask him, because it could be anything.
Yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't matter either way. I'm just curious because I can't.
Upon first, both of us, neither of us at first noticed it. So
yeah, no, it took me like really looking. Yeah, exactly. Keeping it high key, nice, excellent. Clinton here with a beautiful. I mean, come on, the moment is just incredible. So many people, I think, are either afraid to shoot in overcast light, or if they do shoot in overcast light, they're trying to get detail in the sky. And I think sometimes just embracing that gray sky and what you can do with it if you expose for the subject by making that sky just go pure white. I don't know. There's something just beautifully simplistic about a pure white background to me that I'm a big fan of. So, on these overcast days shooting up against the sky, I think if it's done right, and this is done right, it can be just a gorgeous image. And I would say sometimes it can be even something to seek out. Um, Whereas normally I'm always trying to find some kind of tone in the background in most lighting scenarios. But if it's just full overcast and a gloomy sky, man, this is the way to go. And a gorgeous bird, just such a beautiful bird. These cedar waxwings, to see them in person and in photos, they don't even look real. It's just incredible how that coloration fades on them. Uh, Beautiful light in the eye. That's the one nice thing that the soft light does is it gives us detail everywhere we want it. And then, I mean, of course, how can you miss the giant berry being tossed up like that? And I love the title here, just the last berry. And it like no other berries left on this branch, just stripped bare. That's the last one. Down it goes. And then I'm sure off this bird went, either to another branch or to another tree. It's not going to stay there because there's no food left. So incredible image. And again, a great use of just, as you mentioned, just that empty dead space. Listen, cropping in on this any closer isn't going to make the subject stand out anymore. There's nothing to distract in the background. So we don't always need to crop in that close. Just giving it the space, that it has. Everything's looking up in this direction. And it works really well.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, cedar waxwings are a gorgeous bird. Like you said, I know so many people you share a photo with and they say, that's not real. That's not a real bird. But I think a lot of people, including myself, I know in the past have kind of passed up photographing them because they're always up in the high perches on the trees. And again, you don't think about the possibilities like Clinton did here. And it's a gorgeous shot. The position of the berry just perfectly in between, top and bottom of its beak.
Yeah.
It's just such again, similar to the red poles from before. It's just one of those, pure chance, luck, just being in the right place at the right time and being ready for it.
Sure, definitely. Yep. Yeah, and then knowing these birds' behaviors, knowing they feed on the berries, and when you find a good berry, berries, a tree with berries on it, any good fruit-bearing tree that a certain species is going to eat, if you know that even earlier in the season, you can kind of go back when those birds are coming through, when the fruit is starting to ripen and they're going to feed on it. So, those are the kinds of things that seasoned wildlife photographer like Clinton probably did, or maybe it was just happenstance. Maybe he did just happen to be passing by when it happened, but it can certainly be either way, but having that knowledge certainly increases your odds of being able to kind of zero in the right areas,
Oh yeah. Well, and it's something that even if you do, the more you learn about your subjects, like you said, the better you're going to be prepared for that. But even in a situation where you know what to expect or you know what you want, they're not always going to do what you want.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
They're not always going to do what you want.
Yeah.
Or more often than not, you get nothing in that situation. But it's just, I mean, the color in it too is just so subtle. You have just the red and yellow essentially. The bird itself blends with the branch and that yellow tip of the tail, the red berry. There is some red on the branch too, I'm noticing. It just really very simple. Again, I'm going to use the word again, painterly. It looks like a painting. The high key look also makes it look very much like a painting. Something that
it does help to contribute to that. I agree. And great point. I didn't even notice it until you mentioned it. But the color matching here, like the brownish red on the top of the head of this, is almost a damn near perfect match for the brownish red on the branch there. So just having some of those color tones subtly match just kind of makes things even more visually pleasing, makes them work together more. And it's not something you realize right away. It took me as long as it took you to mention it and then for me to even notice it. And then as soon as you say it, it's like, oh yeah, now I can put that together of why those colors are, like all the colors in this are so pleasing and working together. But it takes some time to look at a photo. And I mean, that's why I love doing this show. That's not something we do, and myself included, very often every day when we're looking through photos. It's just like, yep, scroll, like. So I love diving into these photos and kind of getting more out of them, basically.
Yeah.
All right, last photo.
There
we go. We'll end it with that.
Nice. Yeah. Again, I love the backlighting. I'm always gonna love backlighting. I love the bokeh, those gorgeous like orbs. It just really catches your eye. It glistens. I also love the texture of the feathers from the wind.
Yeah.
I imagine
Good call.
those were blowing around.
Totally.
And again, would you consider this a well, not really, because it's backlit. I was gonna say it's almost low key at the same time with the
Oh
black
yeah.
background, but it's with everything being dark except for that bokeh, it
Yeah.
almost is very unique. I haven't
Yep.
seen a shot like this.
Me
Usually, if the
neither.
background's going to be that glisten, it's going to be entirely, usually that's water, obviously. Usually the water is very, whether I don't know if there's something in the foreground creating that. It's a beautiful composition. I love how it narrows in front of the bird, kind of tapering with the beak.
Yep. Yeah, I wonder what that background is. And I love like his title over here, Merry Christmas. So I'm wondering if they are just some sort of lights, you know?
It's
And
possible. If it's
yeah,
Christmas, maybe Christmas lights.
like I'm wondering if he found it was more of like an urban bird and he
Yeah,
kind of found it that way. If it is water, I still think it could totally be possible. You could have a beam of light coming into just the right spot, or sometimes I've had where the water ripples in the background, but like, you'll get like a gust of wind to come through and it only kind of hits like one part of the water at first to kind of start
yeah.
disturbing it. And so maybe it's that, but it does have like how individual each one of these are. It does have the appearance of being like some lights back there.
And
Um,
in fact, I'm now noticing that they're like perfect straight lines down.
yeah. Yeah. So it almost looks like there's some Christmas lights hanging off the side of a house or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it might be some kind of lights like that, which is really, really cool and such a great use of something creative like that. And it also means it was shot in the complete dark or near dark,
Yeah.
if that's the case.
I mean,
So
it
takes on a whole new
probably.
meaning, right?
Oh, yeah. No, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not surprised to see a heron in an urban space if that's what it is. I've seen
Sure.
them climb
Yeah.
out from under people's porches and run off. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, it was such a creative shot. And I don't even know, let's see if I can tell. It looks more like I don't know what the species is. I think this photographer's European as well, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. So, could be a different species that we're not used to getting here. So,
Yeah.
uh, but it looks like a little bit of a more smaller squat kind of heron. Like not, I
Yeah.
don't see like a real long neck. Um, Although sometimes when they're resting, they kind of tuck that in. But yeah, those lights just absolutely make it. I mean, this shot is because of that background. That's it. The shot doesn't exist without that background because it's just black out here and black there. Without that there, it's just black. There's nothing
Yeah.
to happen there. So seeing that, lining it up, pushing the settings, especially if it's a nighttime and they're lights like that, you're really pushing some settings, slower shutter speeds, higher ISOs. And then again, just the use of space, you've mentioned a few times rule of thirds, bird is perfectly on the right hand third there, looking right into the frame, plenty of space there. I love the balance of black in this image as well. We have a nice dark area here on the main, bottomish right corner, and then a big dark space on the top left corner, to just kind of balance it out. A little bit of black down here, a little bit of black there. So it really balances nicely. So I really like that. If anything, the head and the beak are kind of sloping down just a tiny bit, which almost matches the angle of how these lights are sloping there. So there's all these just subtle little things in the background that just kind of keep adding up to make this photo more impressive, more impressive, more impressive. And yeah, I didn't even notice it until you said it. The little feathers just kind of blowing on the top of the head is a nice little touch like that.
Yeah. And I think lastly, for my part, is that, with so much going on in the image, at the same time, so little,
Yeah,
it's, a nice balance. And I'm still drawn to the bird's head. You don't have
totally.
an eye. It's just that shape, the lights, the
Yep.
way they kind of move, or the way they are kind of positioned around it, just draw you
Yeah.
right into it.
Yeah, it's a very well done photo. It really is. So, all right, dude, we did it, man. That was 10
All right.
photos. Really nicely done. Matt, thank you so much for joining me, man. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, sure thing. Do you have any plans for any upcoming shoots? Anything you're going to try and get out and get in the near future? I know in New Jersey in the winter is tough. We were talking about that right before we started recording. So, any plans?
Um, Not really.
Just see
Scouting
what you can
around,
find.
see what I can find, scout around, and wait for warbler season.
Nice. Sounds good, man. Excellent. I think I've talked to a lot of people that are really looking forward to the songbird season in the spring coming back. As the further we get in the winter, the more that happens. So. All right, man. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. I just want to do a quick plug. Just let everybody know these episodes are coming out every Saturday. So if you really like what you're seeing here, tune back in each Saturday. You can either follow on the YouTube channel, or as always, you can find everything I do and share on my website, rayhennessy.com. I do have a new Lightroom class that I just put out. I've been getting some great responses, lots of signups. So if you're interested in learning how I use Lightroom just specifically for wildlife photography, check that out. Again, you can find it on my website, or just hit learnbirdphotos.com is the website for that. You can find an online bird photography course, so a little bit more about how I shoot and some of the post-processing stuff as well. I put out all kinds of videos. I got behind the scenes coming out on every Monday when I can. Got the podcast, the Wildlife Photo Chat, coming out every Wednesday. So tons of content. Just hit rayhennessy.com and check it out there. Thanks again. We'll see you next Saturday.